Welcome to the latest episode of the National Leadiology Association. We're back with part 2 of Leading Through Crisis, the NeuroLeadership approach. So last time we discussed the most effective ways leaders can maintain morale and cohesion during crisis. Today, we're going to look at the neuroscience behind it. I am your host, Dr. Amin Sanaia, as usual, joined by my co-host and tag team top partner, Tanner Thorp.
What's up, everyone? It's Tanner coming to you from the new studio that's getting set up here in the Seattle, Washington area. Leadership lover and expert, lover of people. Looking forward to having another great, robust discussion today.
Yeah, man. But what happened to the couch, though? The leadership couch.
The leadership, yeah, we'll get another leadership couch going.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Like and subscribe, support Tanner Thorp and Dr. Amin Sanaia,
Yep.
and we'll get some couches bought in the podcast studio real quick.
Absolutely. We'll put all the signs on it, whatever you guys want.
That's right.
Good stuff. So, as I mentioned earlier, we talked about the morale and team cohesion during crisis. That is such an important piece of the life cycle of an organization, because every organization is going to go through it. It doesn't matter, if you're a singlepreneur, if you're a small company, mid-sized, large organization, you're going to go through that. And that is a critical piece to really shaping up your character as a leader by your organization's character, which is really important, that you're able to go through those ups and downs and bounce back, learn from it, be resilient. But you have to have the tools and the preparation in order to be able to do that. Anything else you want to add to that, Tanner, before we go into our second question?
No, I think you laid the groundwork perfect. So
okay, good stuff. So question we missed last time, which I was looking forward to it being a little geek nerdy self, is how can leaders use neuro leadership to stay composed and make effective decisions in high stress situations? Now, this is really important for leaders that have not faced situations, or young leaders, or people that are aspiring to be leaders. These are some very important tricks and techniques that we're going to discuss. So make sure you keep this in mind. Go ahead, Tanner.
yeah, neuro leadership. I think, I think the first step is you have to understand what neuro leadership is, right? So you have to understand how the different chemicals inside your brain influence how you react in situations.
Yes.
And so I think, the first step is understanding what neuro leadership is. The second step is understanding how you self-regulate. Because, when you're in high stress situations, we know our natural inclinations to fight or flight, right? Our amygdala gets hijacked. Cortisol starts, flowing through our system, and which is the stress hormone. It supersedes everything else. It clouds our mind, and it affects the way that we can not only think clearly at times, but also how do we present to our teams, and what are we teaching them about what leadership looks like in high stress situations. And I think it's the same thing in high success situations, right? Like what is our reaction when things go really, really well, or we have a very successful moment? Is our reaction to analyze what made us successful? Or is our reaction to, let all of the dopamine highs flood our brain and say, let's go celebrate?
Absolutely.
Neither is right, neither is wrong. There's no judgment in that, but how are we self-regulating in moments of high stress or high success? And what is our reaction there, and how are we teaching others? If the reaction is, in a high stress situation, we shut down or we scream and yell, that then teaches others that that's an acceptable reaction. If in a high success situation, our reaction is we gather the whole team together and we go out and get drunk,
Yeah.
that sets an example also.
Yeah.
And so neuro leadership is so complex because it's not based on something that you're going to learn in business school,
Nope.
right? It's all based on chemical reactions inside of our body, inside of
Hmm.
our brain, and how do we react in those situations when we have those chemicals running through our body. So neuro leadership is it's complex and it is challenging. And I will say that it is probably the strongest leadership skill set that you can have, is to understand how you react in situations and how does that influence leaders above you and leaders below you.
Oh, I mean, you very eloquently stated. And we'll get into the tools and techniques that you can use so that you're able to self-regulate that. But by leveraging insights from brain science, neuro leadership helps leaders improve cognitive flexibility. That is something that
Ooh,
I'm going to
yeah.
speak about in a little bit. We'll go through the tools and stuff like that, but we're going to go through that. It also will help you manage the stress, like um, Tanner stated, enhance collaboration. And when you're in a crisis mode, you have to be able to collaborate. Communication becomes very vital in that situation. And we'll have some examples and just in a minute. And foster emotional intelligent environments. Emotionally intelligent environments are key to getting through moments of crisis, but also it'll help your organization really set the tone that you're not going to get those high highs and those lows. So you're going to be able to regulate as you guys work, where you're maintaining a good pace and a great environment for your organization. So let's go
Mhm.
into some examples and talk about some of the techniques that you guys can use and leverage to be able to get through these moments of crisis. We don't have to go too far. I mean, we just underwent COVID-19.
Mhm.
That's a pretty big crisis. Um, Whatever you think about it, we're not going to get into the political piece of it. But I mean, talk about a moment of really high stress and crisis. Um, and during this time, I mean, there's people that were shut down that couldn't go to work. People, there's us that were working in healthcare. We had to go to work,
Mhm.
practically lived at work.
Yeah, we
While
did.
yeah, while the majority of the country was completely shut down. You couldn't go to restaurants. You couldn't do anything, right?
Mhm.
So that's a big crisis moment. Uh, and I can tell you, for me, having to go to work, one of the biggest things that came from that was the communication piece. So during crisis, the only way you're going to get through it and really keep that team cohesion and really keep everyone on the same page is communication. The communication channels have to be very concise, and you couldn't over communicate. So I
Right.
remember that, I mean, I would spend half of my day writing memos that will have to go out, be printed, physically handed out, send out on emails, make phone calls. Half of my time was as a leader during this crisis was that is communicating to our workforce, communicating to the people you're taking care of, communicating to their families, and their anxiety, because there were times that they couldn't come see them, and it was really really hard communicating with government regulators. Oh boy, please, I'm not even going to go there, because that was
Mhm.
not. I mean, trying to communicate with them is what a journey. What are what was your experience like, Tanner, during those times?
Well, so everything that you just talked about, I think the hardest part in COVID-19 was that nobody really knew what was going on. So you talk about government regulators. I mean, we didn't know. They didn't know what to really regulate. Like all they knew
Yeah.
was that we couldn't meet in groups, and so
And sorry, but they still don't know. But anyways, go
yeah,
ahead.
right, right. Well, we said we weren't going to get into the politics of it, so I'll just gloss over that one. But the reality is that you know there was so much uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds a different level of stress,
Oh yes.
right? And you put into it, and this is a non-political statement, but you put into it the fear mongering
Oh yes.
that is around a global catastrophe,
Mhm.
right? And then that amplifies the stress even more. And so all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where there's no certainty, there's no answers, and there's no release, right? Like you can't get out and go to the gym and blow off steam,
Yeah, they were
right?
close too.
They were closed, right? You can't go to a restaurant and go meet your friends for a drink, right? Like
Yeah.
everything's closed. So, communication was a challenge. Organizing organizing systems in the midst of such tight scrutiny and tight restraints was a challenge. How do we get our teams in and out of work safely with as limited exposure as possible?
Yeah.
My teams during COVID were very hands-on interpersonal teams. So, it's how do you create non-contact um, protocols and systems, and you're absolutely right. It's about communication. I would say the other thing that was a big challenge was the rebelliousness, right? Like we by nature as Americans don't want to be told what to do. We are very independent citizens, and so the idea of any type of controls automatically makes us, before we even understand it, automatically makes us resist.
Yes.
And so the righteous resistance enforce a rule of trying to keep people safe on one side when the other side just disregard what you're putting into place.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely a lot of lessons learned out of there. And I will say one of the biggest things that I've always trained on, I've always taught on, but COVID, in the midst of all of the scariness and stress, um, really offering people grace, right?
Oh man, yeah.
Everybody's scared.
Yep.
Everybody's scared. Everybody's uncertain. Nobody knows really what's going on, and everybody reacts differently with the information that they're given.
Mhm.
So being able to offer grace, huge, vital.
Oh man, that was I can tell you that. So there you go, leaders. I mean, communication, as I mentioned, Tanner talked about, grace. How powerful is that? So
Yeah.
those are really big. Well, let's it's in continuing that conversation. Let's talk about really some of the tools that we can use in order to help leaders manage this with neuro leadership. So leaders
Mhm.
can leverage neuro leadership by understanding how their brains and team members respond to stress. And this is something you mentioned at the beginning. So when we are in high pressure situations, um, the key is being able to balance the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of your rational decision making. So think about that, and the amygdala, which triggers your fight or flight responses, like you mentioned earlier. So
Mhm.
how do you control that where it's a balance of not too much of a point where you're not really looking at what's going to happen by just working with your prefrontal cortex, or letting your amygdala hijack your brain functions and in your fight and flight responses, and you're just full on stress. So
Mhm.
one of the techniques that we're going to talk about is mindfulness. You want to go first there, Tanner?
I'd love to jump into mindfulness. So,
uh,
m mindfulness, true. I mean, when we talk about the self-regulation piece, mindfulness is a key component of it. So, I don't have the textbook definition of mindfulness in front of me, but it is truly being present in the moment
that's it. That's the
of,
definition right there, pressing in the
yeah,
moment.
it's truly being present in the moment and recognizing how you are feeling. What are your initial reactions? What are your initial thoughts? Before you even say anything, taking a moment to practice the pause and take a step back and go, hey, am I approaching this situation from the right way? Are there other vantage points that I can look at? Mindfulness to me is a critical piece of my ability to be a calm leader, and that I do have the ability to self-regulate, to self-analyze,
Hmm.
to stop in the moment and say, okay, what's the best approach here?
Yeah, the self-regulation piece, as you mentioned, is so important because I've seen leaders that, man, it's like woo, like a
Hmm.
yo-yo. Oh,
Hmm.
it's high, low lows. I mean, that just
Very
throws,
manic.
yeah, it throws the organization into tailspin. Like, oh, we're doing great, and then 5 minutes later, oh, the world's gonna end. We're gonna be shut down. As leaders, you need to practice that, learn those techniques. And if you need help with that, reach out to Tanner. You can reach out to myself. We will help you with that stuff. Mindfulness is so important as a leader, but it's not only in the professional sense, but also personally.
Absolutely. No, what we're talking about today, we're talking about this under a leadership umbrella, and we're talking about
Mhm.
neuro leadership as again under a leadership umbrella. But the neuroscience behind this, look, mindfulness, the the long-term effects of practicing mindfulness have been scientifically proven to better your life,
Yep.
professionally, personally, every aspect of it. If you can learn to practice mindfulness, which is a challenge, right? It's
Yeah.
tough in
It's
every situation to be able to stop and say, hey, you know what, this is how I'm feeling. That's just the reality of it. But if you can learn to practice mindfulness, it will have a rippling effect that influences and affects every part of your life in a positive way.
yep. Yep. You can start with simple exercises, especially with yoga. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
look, and I would question, like, if you're the type of leader that in a high stress situation flies off the handle and gets angry, what do you like in your personal life?
wow.
What do you like with your spouse or your partner? What do you like with your children or your parents or you know, whoever's the closest with you, because oftentimes, I mean, aside from ourselves, the person that we treat the worst is the person that's closest to us, right? And so I would argue, if you can't practice, if you're practicing mindfulness in your personal life, but it is not transcending, or it's not coming through into your professional life, I would argue that you may not be hitting the mark on mindfulness, right? Like,
Yeah.
and vice versa. If you can regulate well at work, but you can't regulate well outside of work, I something's not matching up, right?
Yeah.
Like
Eh,
not all the
eh,
pistons are hitting.
No, no, it's not. It's not. The next one that I'm gonna bring up and we're gonna talk about is deep breathing exercises.
All right.
And for me, those as a younger leader, I had to learn that because uh I I'm very well known to whatever is on my heart is really on my face and on my
Mm-hmm.
mind. So I cannot play poker. I don't know what I've never tried it and I probably shouldn't. Um, but one of the things that I learned is that when you start doing deep breathing exercises, when you can try, I mean, we can try it right now. Just breathing deep reduces the stress hormone cortisol. So you try it yourself. If you're upset or you're worried about something, just do some deep breathing for 30 seconds, a minute. You will automatically start feeling different. Your cortisol levels will automatically start lowering. So, I mean, that's just an easy exercises. Also, by you breathing deeply, it activates your prefrontal cortex to help you regulate and really think clear about anything that's being deliberated that you need to make a decision on.
Mm-hmm. And let's remind everyone, no decision has to be made right now,
No.
right? Like if you feel like you're being forced to make a decision right now, practice the pause.
Yeah.
You know,
Pause.
say, hey, you know
Automatically
what?
pause.
This decision doesn't need to be made in the next 5 minutes. Give
Hmm.
me 5 minutes to go just kind of process my thoughts and think
Yeah.
about it, and you know, and take a couple of deep breaths, and really realize where I stand. You know,
Hmm.
I just recently had an opportunity that was delivered to me last week, and you know, I wrestled with this opportunity quite a bit because it's an easy opportunity for me. But the minute, I mean, the second the opportunity came through, I immediately knew that it wasn't the right opportunity for me. Right. And so I went into this process where I was trying to convince myself why it's not the right opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Or shouldn't I go take
Yeah.
this? But deep down, I knew it wasn't right. But it took stepping away from it,
Yeah.
you know, and taking some deep breaths,
Hmm.
regulating my different chemicals that are going through my body, and saying, hey, you know what am I really feeling right now? What does my gut tell me? You know, what is my heart saying? Yeah. Wim Hof, the Wim Hof method is one of the most famous for deep breathing exercises, and one of the things that he's really known for is going into these just like brutally Arctic, cold places without a shirt on and sitting there and regulating his own body temperature through his deep breathing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, the guy
Yeah.
can sit out in like subarctic temperatures for periods of time without
Yeah.
hurting himself
Yeah.
just through deep breathing exercises.
I don't know if I could do that.
No, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, that sounds a little painful. But again, those are
But it
techniques.
shows the power of it.
Man, your brain controls your body. I mean, that's the most
Yeah.
powerful tool. People have been able to heal from diseases with their brains.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
there's a
critical.
great book. The power the power of the extraordinary mind. The Power of the Extraordinary Mind is the name of it, and the whole book is examples um of how we have these common these common belief systems that aren't necessarily always true. I don't want to say they're common misconceptions because they're not misconceptions, but there is like one of the stories in there is this tribe in the Amazon, and they don't have access to fresh water,
Wow.
and they live without drinking water. And we have this, we have this thought, this belief system that we have to have water to survive, and it is a true belief system. You have to have water to survive, but
Yeah.
these people survive without water.
Wow.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
Another example. The brain is your most
yeah,
powerful. I mean, it just controls your entire body, and that's why learning how to emotionally regulate yourself using some of these techniques, you're bound to be successful in your, not only your professional life but in your personal life. And
yeah.
isn't that what we want anyways? I'm
I mean,
just saying.
shouldn't we
Yeah.
want it more in our personal lives than our professional lives?
Yeah.
I mean, our professional lives shouldn't be where we go to find happiness, right? Our personal lives should be the source of our happiness. And is everybody's personal life perfect? No, not by a long shot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the greatest people that I know have had some of the hardest lives I know, but they've also learned these techniques on a personal level.
Yep.
To how do they emotionally regulate? How do they self-regulate? What are the exercises that they have, like deep breathing, mindfulness, meditation, that help them? Meditation has changed my life.
Yep.
It's changed my life. I'll tell you, when I first sat down to meditate, I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't stop my mind from running. All I'm doing is just sitting here and wasting time. This is 5 minutes I'm not going to get back, 10 minutes that I'm not get back. I can tell you exponentially over time, meditation has changed my life.
Yeah.
If I would have wrote it off in the first couple of days of doing it, who knows who I'd be now?
There you go. There you go. For me, is the deep breathing has really been life changing, because it allows me to really stay center.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in some situations that are pretty hard pressing.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been able to self-regulate by just, I start the deep breathing. People can't tell that I'm doing it, but I'm doing that so that I can have a good perspective and be able to listen properly to what the information that's being given. Because if you're not, if you're very emotional and in a pressure cooker situation, you're doing yourself and everyone else a disservice, because you truly are not listening. You're not as engaging as you should be, because you're not taking in all the information that you should, because you're letting your emotions get the best of you.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Additionally, let's go into cognitive flexibility.
Mm.
So this is an essential aspect of NeuroLeadership. This involves adapting thinking and behavior as situations evolve.
Mm-hmm.
This is another technique that I've been able to really take advantage of, learned it, and use it. So, a lot of these techniques, if you learn them, use them, please, because they are going to help you. They are going to help you in any facet of your life. So in high stress situation, cognitive flexible leaders can adjust their strategies quickly. So if you are in charge of a department, a unit, an organization, and you are facing high stress situations, for example, you are having to make decisions of, you have to do a reorganization, or you having to face a decision where, hey, we're going to be taking over by someone else. Those are pretty high stress situations. You need to learn how to be flexible and teach your brain to be flexible so that you're able to really help not only your organization, but help yourself in those situations and pivoting the strategy. You can't do that unless you have that flexibility. I'll turn it over to you, Tanner.
Yeah, again, cognitive flexibility is such a huge piece, and it's as important outside of the professional world as it is inside the professional world. I had a leader one time. This was young in my career, and I was really frustrated about something. And she said to me, "Tanner, is this your hill to die on?"
Wow. Woo! Big words.
And it was one of those, like, I didn't understand it in the moment. She said, "Is this your hill to die on?" I said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And she said, "Tanner, do you care so deeply about this that you're willing to fight for it tooth and nail? That you're willing to risk everything for it?" And I walked away from the conversation saying, going, "Heck yeah, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail on this. I'm gonna do this wrong. It's why I want it this way, and blah, blah, blah." And the further I got away from it, the further I realized that it just really wasn't that important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was not my hill to die on. And I think it was the first like visible experience that I had, tangible experience that I had of cognitive flexibility. Right? I felt so strongly about this piece. And in those simple words, I really went back and said, I don't feel as strongly about this as I thought I did. And maybe there's other ways we can be looking at this. And there's other information that we need. The best leaders that I know are cognitively flexible, right? Mm-hmm. They know what the end goal is that they want, but they're flexible in how they get there.
Yeah, because there's not one way to get to
it's
the
not
goal.
My way.
No,
it's not my way. I was thinking about it this morning. I was actually meditating, and one of the things that came into my brain, I'm trying to remember the construct of it, but it had to do with like being the king or being, the premier person known for something. And in my heart, in my meditation, I have no desire to be the king. I want to be respected for what I do. I want to be respected for my opinion on things, but I don't need it to be my way.
Yep.
Right? I want to be surrounded by like-minded people who are going to grow me and teach me.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be able to have conversations that flex my brain, right? That challenge what I think is the way to do things. Right? Yeah, I've taught about this for a long. You and I've taught together about this. Yeah. I have a 3-decade career in culinary arts. The way that I cut an onion is very precise. Yep. Right? It's very, very precise. But that doesn't mean that the way somebody else cuts an onion is wrong. True. Who am I to think that I am the foremost, authority on how onions are supposed to be cut? Right? Yep. I don't want to be stuck in that thinking. Right? I'm the only way. That sounds horrible. Right? I want ways to cut an onion as possible. I want someone to teach me ways to cut onions that I've never seen. I saw this kid. I say he's a kid. He may have been. No, I'm pretty sure he was a kid. There was this video that was passing around for a while in culinary circles, and it was this kid dicing an onion, and he was using like a scimitar knife, and he was holding the onion in his hands and mincing these onions and flying through them. Right? I've used a knife well for 30 years. I have very strong knife skills. I am good with a knife in my hand. If I were to do what this kid was doing, I'd cut my fingers off.
Wow.
But this kid's got it down.
Yeah,
right? It. Who am I to tell him that my way is right and his way is wrong, right? I couldn't do what he does.
No.
So cognitive flexibility is, I mean, it's understanding that in order to get the best results, we have to have the best processes. And in order to have the best processes, we have to have an open environment where people can give their ideas.
Yep. And allowed to try them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the last kitchen that I was leading, a couple of the cooks were really young cooks, and they said to me, Tanner, how come you don't get angry when we mess something up? And I said, well, if it was intentional, you're just not caring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just don't care about the product. You don't care about the person. You don't care about what you're doing. That'd be a different conversation.
Yeah.
Right. But you're learning. And when we learn, we make mistakes.
That's just a reality. I mean, that's just
it.
a reality. I was just having that conversation with my son earlier today. You know, we're talking about that, you know, and he was very wise in saying it. He's like, well, if we don't make mistakes, we're not going to learn. Absolutely not.
Right.
You have to make mistakes.
You have to make mistakes. As much as I don't like the mistakes that have led me to who I am in my life, I wouldn't change any of them.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, that's
Wouldn't
just
change any of them.
that's just the way it is. And because we both are mavericks in nature, I mean, that's who we are. We embrace that. We want that. Let's try something different.
Let's try it.
We know inherently there's going to be pitfalls because of it, but that's the fun part of like, oops, well, maybe we should have tried that. Okay, well, let's try something else.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there's the story.
Yes,
right?
There you go. There you go.
You know, I mean, going back to the last kitchen that I ran, you know, the kids there, I mean, every young cook wants to be the next hotshot superstar chef, right?
Yep,
So I would tell them, bring me some recipes, right? You want to learn, let's grow. Bring me some ideas of what you want to do. Let's put some recipes together, right? Let's cost it out. Let's figure out what we're going to charge for it. Let's practice it a couple times. Make sure we've got the dish down. It tastes how you envision it. Tastes how I think is going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and then let's put it on the menu. And two things happen in that moment. One, they understand that somebody believes in them.
Mm-hmm.
So they start to believe in themselves more. And two, you have the genesis of a story, right? I can go sell any entree item to any person in a dining room if I have a story behind it, right? If I come out and I say, hey, the special tonight's chicken Alfredo, you want it? All right. Nobody cares about that.
That's
right?
not very inspiring.
But if I come out and I start, right? If I come out and I start talking about Timmy and how Timmy's so excited about this new brine that he's got for his chicken, and here's all the ingredients that are in it, and tonight's the first night that it's on the menu, and would you be interested in trying that? I'm gonna sell hundreds of those, right? It's passion.
That's it. That's it. I mean, just like in what you're saying, I have so many stories with that, with allowing people to, hey, let's try something, you know, and and when they're not used to it, they're in shock. They're like, oh my God, you're gonna allow me to do something different? Absolutely. Yep. Like that's so we get people to grow, and the feeling of them when you see their eyes start shining and they're getting big, and you're like, oh,
that's the win. That's the win.
There you go. When you see that, when you experience those moments, that's it.
So I had a kid in that last kitchen, and he came to me with a burger that he wanted to put on the menu, and it was a pimento cheese burger, fried green tomato. I forget what all he had on it, right? His name's Cameron. And so we called it the Cameron burger and put it on the menu and told all the people for customers for weeks that it was coming. And when it first started ringing up in the kitchen, the ticket said Cameron burger. I think he kept the first 5 tickets that rang in to take home so he could show his mom and his grandma.
Look at that. I mean,
I didn't need to sell any more Cameron burgers.
No. I mean,
none. That's the win. That's
it right there.
Cameron's gonna carry that forever.
Oh, he'll never forget that in his life.
That's the currency.
Yeah. That's how
I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah. That's how we win. As leaders, we win when we can create those moments for our people that are unforgettable, That's the win. If you can do that as a leader, you won.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely. All right, let's start wrapping it up. You want to go first?
Yeah, so this has been a great conversation on NeuroLeadership and some fun tools that you can use to help yourself in the moment. But as we've said throughout this is more than just a leadership discussion. Regulating yourself, understanding how the neuroscience of what's happening in your brain affects who you are, is it's a lesson that we should be learning day in and day out in all of our areas. If you practice these things in your personal life, they will transcend into your professional life. They'll transcend into your personal relationships, your interpersonal relationships, your professional relationships. They will influence your character in such a way that your character influences those that you lead.
Oh man. How do you follow that? Oh boy. Awesome as usual. Tanner knocks it out the park. So NeuroLeadership focuses on understanding how the brain functions, such as your emotional regulation that we spoke about, your decision making, and social interactions, and how it influences your leadership behavior. How cool would it be if you get to control how you react or don't react to crisis situations? That's where the NeuroLeadership, the brain science, comes about. By leveraging the insights of brain science, NeuroLeadership helps leaders improve cognitive flexibility. We just had a long discussion on that. Manage your stress, your levels of stress, and enhance collaboration. You win. You win as leaders. You win as human beings. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Look forward to our next episode. We're checking out.
Thanks, everyone. Have a blessed day.